And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to You, Me, and YTV special episode. Not just because, well, it's an episode, but because I got a special guest today. Do you like the song Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? Do you like the X-Men animated theme song? Do you like VR Troopers? Do you like Sweet Valley High? There is a man who's been able to not only write a great song, but many great songs. And throughout everyone's career, they could say to themselves, I want to be remembered by one of my tunes. But what if you're remembered by like 10 of them? This is absolutely insane. I am so happy to introduce today the composer of my childhood, Mr. Ron Wasserman. How's it going, dude?
How you doing, guys and girls?
All right, so here we are. This is going to be absolutely great today, dude. I just got to tell you, I was through doing research to this show. I was looking at some of your work and what you had to work with, more importantly. Because in 1993, I started loving metal because of you, and it's interesting because Power Rangers was my gateway into Iron Maiden and all these other really heroic galloping, whatever, and it all comes from this song. But if you don't mind, I would love to play the original clip of the original song that your series is based off of, because this is what you saw, and I gotta ask you about your headspace of how you got to the other place. So everybody, this is Kyoto Ranger Sentai from, I believe, the early 1980s, and this is what your beloved Power Rangers is based off of. This is so different. Check this out.
1億数千万年前の恐竜時代から今よみがえった5人の戦士たち。恐竜戦隊10レンジャー10レンジャー10レンジャー伝説の戦士たちよ10レンジャー10レンジャー時をかける希望恐竜戦隊10レンジャー
Okay, so even seeing that,
it's just like I've never seen that.
Okay, you haven't. Okay, so would that have stopped your creative process of the direction you went in?
Probably would have caused me to pick a different career.
Okay, I particularly love Japanese pop music, but it's amazing. Like the Power Rangers theme song that you wrote, how much it I can honestly say it changed my life. And we're gonna play that song right now, and then we're gonna talk about that song. It's gonna be great.
Alpha, Venus escape. Recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes.
Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers! Mighty Morphin Power Rangers!
That is still the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. Sorry for swearing, everybody, but I will never forget. My friend Phil came over one day. He's like, dude, have you seen Power Rangers? And I'm like, what's a Power Ranger? And he plays that, and I lose my mind. Just the colors, the action, but it's the music, man. Because I've seen Power Rangers, well, other songs. You've written a crap ton of Power Ranger songs, but at parties, we like to put on their music underneath it. But oh my God, like what was your, tell me about the story of how you wrote this song and what inspired you to write it? Because
it really was just a night where they came in and they said, we have the new thing that we're showing the Fox tomorrow. And we need a theme for it. And I can't even remember if I saw any footage at all. Or maybe there were a couple pictures. I do remember distinctly having to call one of them back later because they left me alone. and went home because I worked at nights there. And I do remember calling back going, morphin or morphine? Tell me what this is again. And they had said that Haim Saban had a lot of luck with the word go, with Go Gadget Go, an Inspector Gadget that he and his partner wrote back in the 80s. And so I had been wanting to push, I had tried to push the envelope on previous projects they had by having either really fast tempo, wild stuff, or tried to inject some sort of metal flavor into it. And it always got rejected. And they went with music more in the genre of like the Japanese theme that you heard.
Okay.
And this time, from that moment they walked out to completion was 2.5 hours. I threw those guide vocals on, the high harmonies kind of flat, because I figured, well, if it goes, we'll bring in a real singer. I've never, ever had sung on anything. I mean, I'd given guide melodies to people, but my voice had never been on anything ever. And the next day they called and they said, Fox loved it and it's a go. And I said, who are we going to get to sing it? And they said, you're the singer. And I said, cool. And literally that was the end of it. There was no footage yet, nothing. I mean,
You sang? That's you?
On to the next project. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, believe it or not, this voice hit that.
Dude, that's amazing. I was always wondering. When I heard the singing, I'm just like, it sounds so much like metal and Iron Maiden, but the vocally, it's not like, go go Power Rangers or Power Rangers. Like it was literally, it was such an accessible vocal performance because it makes all of us sing along. Like that's
too
a big
hard, not too soft. I found the Goldilocks zone with that.
Yeah.
And I figured out it, and I always had to do this for all the songs, was gargling ice cold Diet Pepsi.
Okay.
And so I would gargle that, and that would cause my chords to tighten up, and I sing wrong, so it's all screaming through the throat. So on all those songs and the long version of the theme and everything I did for the show, it kind of, I would be singing so, not loud, but so hard to get that growly sound that sometimes my vision would go blurry as my sinuses were like getting swollen in my head, or it was my brain, it was something. But it was once I dialed in that sound, it was easy to hold on to it, but it took a little work to get to it.
Oh, amazing, man. Hey, we got a lot of comments here from the people. Jen Raby, man, I can't remember how many times I had listening to this when we had the Rangers at MTL Comic Con and Ottawa Comic Con. That's true. Some of the actors have come to Montreal Comic Con before. They're a nice group of people. But you're not on the set. Like you're just like, here we are pitching something to Saban. You've written other songs such as you've also written the X-Men song, which is amazing. We'll talk about that a bit later. But right now it's Power Ranger time. Well, you mentioned some metal, you threw some metal in there, but what are some metal bands that you like?
Oh man, back then it would have been, I think Black Sabbath would have probably been my number one choice. I was definitely in the 70s and 80s listening to a lot of Black Sabbath and not too much Van Halen, although that triplet guitar part in the Power Rangers theme was a tip of the hat to Eddie Van Halen, which luckily I got to meet with him years later and talk to him about. But the rest was just years and years of listening to all these great guitar players over the year. Pink Floyd. I mean, there's a gazillion of them.
Yeah.
But, I didn't want to be that. I have performance anxiety. I've never been on a stage in the front. I've been in one in bands playing keyboards, always in the back. So I just kind of was able to create, in the studio, I'm very comfortable. So it was really easy to be, rock star in there and create the sound that I always wanted to do. I'm so glad it worked out for this show because it did change. Luckily, I always consider it channeling. It's a gift what I do with the music, but at least it gave that show a lot of oomph.
Oh, oomph to say the least. I
gave it a ton of balls and it gave it some grit, what it needed, because especially with some of that really cheesy but cool Japanese footage.
Yeah, for sure. And
punch a pig.
But that's the thing. This is a show in which a bunch of teenagers turn into turn into stuntmen that don't fit their body types at all,
Right.
and fight giant rubber pigs, and you totally buy it, all because of this soundtrack. And it's amazing when you bring that drive and that electric guitar, how you can make the show seem younger. Because as we saw the clip before, I'm like, this doesn't scream teenager. This screams kind of like 5-year-old or something. But that song had attitude. Like, repeat with teenagers with attitude. It's true though. It really did. So
it gave it that thing, and it wasn't writing for kids. Everything prior to that, they still wanted to, and they had done incredibly well with it. So I'm not saying they were wrong, but everything was right to the kids. Keep it simple, and I'm pretty much like, fuck that. Let's treat them like adults.
That always, that always goes so far when people don't talk down to their audience. We'll talk about X-Men in a second, but I've interviewed the showrunner Eric Lewald and writer Julia Lewald before, and they have this great book called Previously on X-Men. But they basically said they had a lot of trouble with Stan Lee and other people, other executives, where they were basically saying, well, we want to write for, young adults. And they're like, no, it's got to be more for kids. And when you make something for kids, it's for kids, it stays for kids. But I'm 36 and I'm still talking about how awesome Power Rangers is. So clearly you aiming for a more universal age market really worked out well.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting when the album came out, which was originally just the songs. And then they wanted to tone down. They were having a lot of problems with people, kids beating each other up, and they said it's because of the Power Rangers music. So they wanted to tone down the album by putting dialogue all over it.
Okay.
That album, the number one demographic on sales, I remember just looking at the numbers one day, was like 18 to 25, and then males like 45 to 59.
Wow.
Those were the biggest CD sales. And I just looked at that and just went, well, they've got to be buying it for their kids. Or maybe they're not. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Black Sabbath, which Tony Iommi like literally had a metal finger because he lost the tip of it in an accident in a factory, therefore creating heavy metal. But it's Tony Iommi, even though he wasn't shredding all the time, he definitely, the strength of Black Sabbath was his riff writing. And I gotta ask you, like, that Power Rangers riff, I believe it's an E, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, I believe it's an E.
Yeah, and just it's really one note. It's one note with it, and it changes a bit, but it's just all starts out with dun, 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 dun. I'm like, how did you must have been like itching to put this kind of stuff in, because magic doesn't just fall out of nowhere. Like, did you have that riff kind of like in your repertoire, being like someday? Dun, 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 dun.
No, because I had no time. Once I started, so this is 1992, late 92 when I wrote it, or 93, I can't remember.
Okay.
But I had been working so many hours mixing the other composer stuff, trying to inch my way into the music side where I could be a composer at that company. So I didn't really have time to screw around once, but I did have this sampler and I had this great guitar sound. So I don't know. It just came out. I mean, it's all done on keyboard, every note of it. So
it's all keyboard.
The ding here.
Wait. So all that air guitar I was doing were lies, like with all this guitar notes were keyboard and stuff?
Yeah. Every note on that theme was done on a keyboard. And just about every song, unless there's a clear guitar solo, all done on keyboard.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So some of that,
the chunk out of the low notes, it should have been like, it doesn't have the snap.
Okay.
Hammer action, but I don't even play guitar.
So everybody out there, when you're listening to Power Rangers from now on and you're rocking out like this, change it to this. Like Jerry Lee Lewis, that stuff a bit.
And those triplet parts.
Yeah, that's funny because it sounds like you're tapping.
It fooled Eddie Van Halen. he wanted me to show him. He had learned the riff.
Okay.
Woofy wanted him to play it.
Yeah.
And he went through the other thing. He goes, man, it took me like 2 weeks to learn this. He goes, how did you play it? And I said, let's go over to the piano.
Well,
he was so pissed.
well, he's a good piano player though, so I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure he was appreciative for learning it. So my buddy Rocky said something very cool. He said this was one of the few Power Ranger themes that have multiple stanzas and had to be cut down for the intro. The rest were usually just made specifically for the intro. That's true. This song is longer than it. Like there's an original version where they go, they got the power. Was it?
That's actually later on.
That's later on. Okay.
This was the original 60-second theme.
Okay.
Later, they came back when things started taking off, and they said, "Can you please do a not please, you're going to do a full-length version." So that was kind of fun because it's based on the same riff. Melodies pop at them; they pour out of me. So then it was just finding those right words and that delicate balance to keep that grit going. Without, you say one wrong word, and all of a sudden they sound weak. The song sounds weak. So you got to choose. Every word was thought out carefully. And then we had the long version of it. And that was probably, the long version was probably after songs were already written, at least 2 or 3 songs.
I noticed that, they got you back in to write songs like Go Green Ranger, go with that Ron Wasserman Pepsi voice that we've all come to know and love.
Go green, go white, go black.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, can we do one for the girls? Can we do something?
Yeah. You ever think about just writing one just for the girls after all this time? Just to be like,
kind of a sexier one.
Yeah.
Pretty hot.
Yeah.
Back then. I don't mean back then, not an insult. I'm not an insult. I just meant back then.
Okay. So I'm really glad my friend Liz brought this up. Now she has a Sweet Valley High song in her head. Dude, I had a blast doing research for you, man. You have a golden touch when it comes to melody, and that's where it all comes from. I'm like, I have no business liking Sweet Valley High. I like
it too.
I do have some business. Okay, well, as I bring it up, I realize I have not uploaded it for this, but I will in a second. Can you just tell me a little bit about you have songs like for shows like Mummy's Alive, and like you've done 6 different Power Rangers series, which we'll get into. But when it comes to Sweet Valley High, that's a whole different ballgame, and it sounds more smooth. It's a little kind of Beach Boy type.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to be a cool, and again, I knew they'd be, by that time I had a ton of experience. A couple years later, even a year later, but I knew they were going to be chopping that thing down to 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and for sound bites and bumpers going to commercials. So it was important to get that short melody in. The hard part was after I wrote it. Somewhere probably in my garage, I have a version with my guide vocal on, which I do hope to pull up. But I don't know if I was married yet, but I was dating this girl named Kathy Fisher, and I had to beg her. I said, please come in and sing this. The reason I had to beg her is because everything there was non-union. They were buyouts. So she got like a couple $100 for doing it. But I begged her to sing on that thing. And she really is a great singer. So it made it very memorable.
Okay.
How long it took to write, I honestly don't remember. I don't remember writing it, but I remember being very happy with it.
Well, let's take a little peek at this song right now, everybody. And let's imagine Ron's amazing Pepsi voice singing over this thing. I hope you release it someday. All right.
You don't.
Look right down in a crowded hall. You see there's a beauty standing. Is she really everywhere? Or a reflection? One always calls out to you. The other shy and quiet. Could there be 2 different girls who look the same at Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley High, Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley High, Sweet Valley, Sweet
See, that song's awesome.
Yeah, it's catchy. That hook just grabs you.
Like you're really good. You're really good at making these simple sing-along hooks because like there two singers I can come to mind because they came out right around the same time. I can name you 20 Britney Spears songs, and I can name you maybe 5 Christina Aguilera ones because Christina Aguilera is much more focused on showing everybody how good of a singer she is, as opposed to will my audience be able to sing along with me.
Right, exactly.
And Hit Me Baby One More Time is the song's like about 20 something years old now, 25 years old. And it's still, and you could still sing every lyric by the second verse. So
great. And it's just a perfect mix. It doesn't ever seem dated.
Yeah, exactly. So, I know that you were under a lot of duress to write Power Rangers, a song very, very fast. How long did they give you to write this Sweet Valley High song? Because there's verses, there's different flavors to it.
Well, the original is always to sell the show because they're going in, or maybe they'd already sold this one. I don't know, but something like that. You'll laugh. Something like that, they definitely would have given me 8 hours a night.
They're like, Sweet Valley High, let's get the Power Rangers guy. That's a guy who's going to know.
We are just blasting stuff out as fast as possible. And I was the only composer there. I kind of took over. The other guys were, and it's not their fault, but they were out. They couldn't do what I did. And so I took over everything. So between doing this and scoring Power Rangers or scoring X-Men or doing cues for this or the ideas that they were trying to sell that never saw the light of day, there's so much work. So I was doing 80 hours a week there. So it was just another, it's another thing that had to be done. I'm not discounting it, but just cranking it out.
Yeah.
And so it was good because the writing muscle wasn't as strong as it had ever been then. So
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
For sure. Dude, when I write one song, I can write 4 songs, but then there'll be months in between. If that part of your brain isn't active, you can't think of the next thing. So and it's like cramming before a test. That's really amazing how all this magic you're able to get at the last second. Do you prefer to work under those circumstances?
Extreme deadlines.
Okay.
Doing a show called The Thundermans for Nickelodeon, and I would get my fix-it notes. So I get the lock cut, the final picture, let's say on Thursday afternoon, score it through to Friday night, send off so that the producers have the weekend to look at it. 11:30 p.m. on Sunday would get my notes. Sometimes not much, sometimes none, rarely a lot. Get back in the studio, work till 3 or 4 in the morning, get up at 7, drive to LA and be there for the mix. But that kind of pressure just accelerates the creativity for me.
Amazing. So I'm really I was doing some research, and your first IMDb credit is this anime called Takumin. I'm going to say
is it like it's TEKK or something, right?
Yeah.
I had forgot that I even wrote that, or I still don't really know what it is. But some people had dug up and said, you're credited for this. You did this. And so it got added there.
Okay. Well, do you want to take a look at the clip?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
All right, let's do it right now.
I think I know what
the
it is.
21st century, the Earth was invaded by a horde of mutant spider crabs under the control of the Venomoid warlord, Darkon.
When I descend upon the earth, darkness will unfurl its banner across yet another region of the cosmos.
Even the heroic men and women of the Space Knights cannot defend the Earth without the help of a mysterious young man named Slade, who has the ability to transform into the superhero known as Technoman.
Okay, you've been doing this giant robot biz for a long time.
I remember that now because that definitely would be my melody, the horn thing. Da-da-da-da,
Yeah.
da-da-da-da. Yeah. And then repeating it so that it's now stuck in my head. So I remember that. And that would have been done on like one keyboard to tape, and I never saw what it went for.
Okay.
I have not seen that. I'm glad you found it. You're finding some great stuff.
Dude, it's thank Wikipedia and IMDb, and I love your website.
Oh.
Could you tell everybody what your website is called? I believe it is
ronw.com, RONW.com.
ronw.com, and
Not very elaborate, but it's just kind of the latest stuff.
well, you have this great playlist on Spotify of all your work, especially with the Power Rangers album. So that's fascinating to look through. What I also really liked about it, it says, for the best knowledge of what I've done, go to IMDb. And I'm like, it does make sense. If your IMDb is up to date, I'm like, that's where I was anyway. But now it feels good to know that you're like, no, this is where to find it. Okay, good.
It's really out of laziness because it gets updated
Yeah.
kind of by itself. And
Okay.
up until the like June of 2018, I did try to update stuff. It's just another thing I was trying to not have to do.
Hey, Bernadette is saying something really nice here. Bernadette. Oh, sorry. Please say hi to her and I'll shut up.
Hi, Bernadette.
There we go. Bernadette is so helpful. She shares the show so much. Everyone who shares the show, I love you. But Bernadette's got a bunch of pages and she shares them on each and every one of them. So each and every week, thank you guys. Thank you so much, Bernadette, for sharing. It means the world to me. And a lot, my friend Elias is saying you guys have a great, amazing flow. Awesome interview. Well, thanks, dude.
Look at how cool he looks.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice, relaxed.
He's a very cool guy. Okay, so we're talking about shows, and sometimes shows can inspire other shows or even rip off shows. But what's unique is that the Power Rangers camp said Power Rangers isn't enough. We got to make more shows. We got to bring that magic Ron Wasserman stuff with us. And you made the theme song to a little show called VR Troopers.
We are.
And I was the guy back in the day that couldn't get enough of Power Rangers. I wanted all those other shows. I would go to dollar stores and buy Super Rangers and Power Troopers and all the knockoff toys. I was so obsessed that there was no ceiling to how much Power and Ranger stuff I would want. And VR Troopers definitely filled that need. Can you tell me a little bit about working on VR Troopers?
I remember mainly doing the score. I remember doing the original reel that they did to sell the show. So I can't remember, but it was kind of an emotional. I really don't remember the story. I remember trying to incorporate some Japanese sounds, and you come up with some emotion, and then boom, we're into the action. And although it leaned towards rock, it certainly couldn't be as hard as Power Rangers. So, but I was happy with the end result. And I think the show only went 2 or 3 seasons. Did you research that?
It went 2 seasons, and then they ran out of footage. That's pretty much it.
Did they shoot anything new?
No, they ran out of Japanese action footage to base it off of.
Oh.
And another fascinating thing about this show, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is actually 2 shows they edited together because if you'll notice, there's a team of 3, but one guy is always one place and the other 2 are always somewhere else. They actually never fight in the same place because they edited 2 shows together. That is fascinating. Would you mind if we take a look at the clip of VR Troopers?
Let's do. I didn't know that.
Oh God, it's
Countdown control. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Virtual reality. Troopers 3. Virtual reality. Troopers 3. Virtual reality. Troopers 3.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Virtual reality. Troopers 3. Virtual reality. Troopers 3. Virtual reality. Troopers 3.
okay. Did I detect a modulation at the end of it? Like, do you go up?
No, they
Do you go?
probably had to. They probably tweaked something. I don't know why. That just caught my ear. I'm like, I don't remember doing that.
Exactly.
I do remember all the tape speed stuff to do all those voices, though. That took forever, especially when you're, yeah, we are. Sounds like CNN. I must have been watching CNN. They used to have a deep voice. This is CNN.
That's James Earl Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Yeah. So like I said, and it's kind of funny because I can remember the exact time that I stopped jumping on the Power Ranger and VR Trooper bandwagon. It's right around the time the show called Big Bad Beetleborgs came out, and all of a sudden there's like they're very little kids. They're not teenagers anymore because they want to get the next crop of kids to like this stuff. And they're in a haunted house with some crappy Frankensteins and Draculas, and I'm like, I'm out. And I say that because I double checked, and you did not write that tune. So yeah, no.
Yeah.
So by then you're just kind of like, or maybe they're just like, okay, maybe let's try someone else. But I noticed that they kept calling you back for more Power Ranger series like Zeo and Space. And it all feels familiar. And I think that's great because despite the fact they're changing actors and productions they're basing it off of, it all sounds like the same series because of your music.
Yeah, it was weird because I think I already left.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I left, I was doing stuff for them at home. So they would, I think I probably just worked out the themes at home, then went in to work with them on. But I mean, at home too, I was scoring Dragon Ball Z. They just said, do what you want with it. This is going nowhere.
I noticed you're a music producer on Dragon Ball Z, and I did not get any clips because I wouldn't want to play something that wasn't correct.
I just did the entire score for the first 2 seasons. I did not write I didn't write that theme.
Okay. So
who wrote it?
Dragon Ball Z. Okay, but that's super cool though. The Dragon Ball music, everybody. I mean, during the fighting and stuff.
Fun.
Yeah. Amazing.
They didn't care at all what I did. So I did this huge ethereal, these big building things. Now keep in mind, I'm working at home with a 1 keyboard, 1 little sampler, 19-inch tube television, and a VCR player, which one side has the audio and the other side has SMPTE code on it, which is a very obnoxious sound like an old so you can read the time code and lock to picture. And it's 2 signals bleed through each other. So I'm having to listen to SMPTE while listening to dialogue and scoring this thing at home on a dining room chair. I mean, the technology just wasn't good.
No.
Through all of this time, I mean, recording the tape and just what I can do now. I mean, back then we had $500,000-$600,000 worth of gear in the room I worked in, and constantly had techs working on the stuff. This is about 400 times more powerful.
Nice.
iMac Pro in this. I can do anything. The speakers tune themselves to the room for frequencies. It's just crazy now. So I love it. So back then, if I sang it, it stuck. There was no pitch correction. There was nothing. It had to be right or you redid it.
But you gotta love that raw honesty that comes with it, and I think maybe that's what struck a chord with so many kids, because so many kids would go on to love punk rock and metal based on these themes you wrote. Not Sweet Valley High as much, but maybe they tapped into that raw energy and honesty that only circumstances like that can produce.
Right.
Well, look at Guns N' Roses. Appetite for Destruction is kind of a perfect album, but then in Use Your Illusions, they had millions of dollars at their disposal, and what you get is 2 concept albums that are really too long and don't have that this is it or else feel. So yeah, I'm totally a fan of that raw, real, get it done, without too much procrastination.
Yeah, and starving is a great motivator too. So those guys, once they had probably already had bought I forgot what they bought, a 727 by the second album. It's hard to talk about being on Sunset Boulevard and struggling, trying to make it, and Welcome to the Jungle when you can buy the frickin' street.
Yeah. Welcome to the jungle. Axel owns a plane.
And he just went downhill from there, unfortunately.
Oh man. Okay, so fun thing, getting a lot of questions in here, but also This person is saying loved Power Rangers and Mummies Alive theme.
Yeah.
I could listen to them all day. Well, guess what, Ron? We have the Mummies Alive theme.
I love this theme.
Oh my God. You know what, Ron? You have a talent because you made a show about mummies cool. You know, years before Brendan Fraser and all that would make mummies the thing to do in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had this. And yeah, we're going to play Mummies Alive right now, everyone. We're going to talk about Mummies Alive with the composer, Ron Wasserman.
Right.
They found a secret out this year that he was once a pharaoh when Egyptians ruled the world, and now the sorcerer named Scarab tries to get him day and night. But Riff has 4 guardians to protect his very life. He has the mummies. He has the mummies. Protection from the new prophecy. He has the mummies. They're hanging by the Frisco Bay. He has the mummies. Protectors of the world today. He has the mummies. From the 55 BC. He has the mummies. Bring the power of Pharaoh T. He has the mummies. They're headed by the Western Gate. He has the mummies. They're gonna save the world today. The Egyptians pray the mummies alive.
Man, I wish I had a copy of that.
Oh my God, that is such a cool song.
A great theme. I remember I said Scarabrung. I called him like Scarab. I had to go back and replace probably the word before it and the one after. I definitely remember because they called me and they were just they said we love it. They were just dying laughing because I had said it wrong. That's why I checked on morphine over morphine.
Mighty Morphing Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
Well, they are teenagers. Okay, wow, dude. As I watched that intro, I kind of lost it because right at the end there, you have kind of like what the hell is it? Like an organ or something, like a cathedral organ, making it sound like horror. Like it really had a horror element. So
Yeah,
it's like badass, mummies, metal, horror.
Exactly. It's a hybrid for sure.
Wow.
And that would have been with Deke Entertainment. And every theme I did for Deke, I think I did Mummies Alive, something called Trolls, Horse, all these things. I always had to write at least between 10 and 30 themes. And he always went back to the first one. But the first one that was always delivered like this, I'd always get the note too fast. So I'd do slower stuff, or he'd go, how about a song like this? I go, again, like the rap curse or whatever. So I something with a slower groove. And then they would test market it to kids, and kids would go like, I like the first one. So then they'd, thank you, Jonathan. So that would be they'd always go back to it. But the pain of having to write themes after you know you've got the one is a nightmare. But that happens to everybody.
Okay, so wait, let me get this straight. Were there alternative versions of that? Let's go back to Power Rangers. Did you have to write like multiple Power Ranger songs and they just took...
No, at Saban, they said, we love it. This is it.
Okay. But in general, you always have to kind of like, kind of have to make a few just in case. Okay. So we're getting a lot of comments. Well, the X-Men theme was my ringtone for many years. To this day, it still brings a smile to my face when I hear it. It's a heck of a theme, Ron. From what I understand, there was a lot of back and forth between that, where people wanted, heavier and stuff like that. I don't know. The X-Men tune's a great song. I think it's a great way of music and imagery coming together, because it's very unique the way that intro is animated. It's very exciting, and I don't know. Good job, bud.
And the bell.
What bell? Let's hear a bell.
In the X-Men theme.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ding. It took forever to find that darn chime.
Okay.
In there.
Amazing. So X-Men came before Power Rangers, correct?
Yeah, I think. I always thought it was after, but it appears to have been a year before. That's how much of a blank. Just so you don't think I'm some spacey, stupid musician. See, like at ASCAP, we have performance societies that collect royalties. There alone is about roughly 23,000 cues, and
Okay.
not themes, but that much. And some of them are just show names.
Yeah.
So there's closer to 35,000. So it's always a matter of what do I have to do tomorrow? That's why I'd lose these timelines. Well, it's also been a heck of a long time. But yeah, X-Men was first.
Well, it's kind of good that you're not sitting around thinking about how awesome you are at all times. I'm sure that's not good for the soul.
Yeah. But it's also weird when I've worked with actors and they're still living back in their hit show in the 90s or something. You're like, it was great what you did, but
Yeah. We have this whole subculture of people like me who are just reminding you of all the great stuff you've done in the 90s.
taking a little stroll now and then is a beautiful thing. Living in it is weird. And I always want to send these people calendars and just circle 2020. Well, this year I don't want to circle. Fuck this year. But they just want to circle it and say, here we are now.
If you could tell 10-year-old me that heard all these songs for the first time what 2020 was going to be like, I don't know. I would have traveled more. Yeah. Okay. So,
You just said, Mom, Dad, can I be born a different time, please?
yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of the kids right now aren't going to remember a lot of stuff. Yeah, dude, let's talk about your history a little bit with Power Rangers and how it continued. Here is another song that followed the original Power Rangers series, and it's the first time you had to write another one. Was it at any point, did they ever think to themselves, we're just going to have the same song play in all these different versions of the show? Or was it always their intention to be like, oh, well, get Ron to write a new one, new Zords, new suits, new actors, write a new one?
Well, when I was there, it was write a new one. You tip the hat, but don't go back like they did for the last 5-6 years where they just kept recycling the thing.
Okay.
When Saban bought the rights back. But no, it was it's a new thing. The series is established. Let's do something new that still sounds familiar.
Was it hard to go back to the well and kind of like try to recreate that magic? Was there the pressure of like, well, the last time I did this was a slam dunk. Can I do this again?
Because really, with everything, I've just figured if I fail and somebody else ends up doing it, then it wasn't meant to be. It's that simple. If I get it, great. If I don't, it's life. Don't think I don't fight for it, but I want it. But luck, I think that attitude, for me at least, has made it easy to just continue working.
Okay.
And the things that haven't happened, they don't happen.
Well, let's take a look at this Power Rangers Zeo song. It's different. It feels familiar, but it's a whole new set of Zords. That is so interesting. So they blend the old theme in the end to really, build the bridge in between the two series.
Yeah, they just dropped him in, and I don't know who sang this one.
Okay, I was gonna say Ron. I'm like, wow, man, you stepped up your Pepsi voice there, bro. Like,
I don't know who that is, but I hear in the background vocals, I hear the president of music, Ron Kanan. I heard his voice in there in some of the harmonies. I know his newest singing voice really well, but I don't know who sang lead on that. I thought it was Jim Cushionary, but it's not.
Well, I definitely heard your voice in there, though. Like the way you sing Power Rangers, like your voice is somewhere deep in that mix, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they probably ended up pulling and dropping in and building around it.
Wow.
But I know I handed them that melody because
Yeah.
that's definitely my style of writing.
Yeah.
They may have taken it over or, produced it over, not overproduced it, but just worked and worked and worked on it.
Dude, man, I was listening to that melody, that lead melody, and I'm like, stronger than before. And I'm like taking a sword up and riding shirtless on a dragon with a bunch of abs. Like it's totally awesome tune, man. Wow. So there was a Power Ranger series, I believe, that happened. Okay, right after this, I believe they go into space.
Yeah.
And you do that one too.
Yeah,
So,
that's a fun one.
all right, I'm gonna make sure I'm playing the right one because all I got the files. They're all called Power Rangers. So I'm gonna click on one of them. We're gonna hope that it's the right one. Okay, everyone. All right, it's either Power Rangers or SPD or something. Yeah. All right, so this is one of them, and we're gonna listen to it right now.
SPD emergency.
That is definitely the SPD one. Here is the space one.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rangers in space.
Controls to outer space now, flying higher than ever before. Rangers
In space.
go, Power Rangers, Power Rangers, Power Rangers, go, Power Rangers, Power Rangers, Power Rangers, in space.
Well, it's short.
Oh man, that was amazing.
That's
Dude, you have a gift. You should write for Iron Maiden. This is so good. Like,
Oh, that would be fun.
oh my God. Like, really, like you sell that show. That show hasn't even started yet. I'm like, this show could be about like, people watching some hamsters chew on grass, and I would still be just as into it because of that song.
Grass.
Yeah, hamsters on grass. Yeah, man. Okay, so here's another tune, but way more notes and way more attack. I find that one's a little bit more like instead of get up. This is a doing Power Rangers.
Well, you also had to juxtapose the rolling verse, the bum 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 bum, because it almost sounds lazy.
Yeah.
Rolling like this, and then you better just go like.
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
It's a matter of creating those dynamics so that you go, wow.
I saw this movie called Eddie and the Cruisers Part 2, and it's this fictional character is talking to a lead guitar player about the importance of melody. And it's not about all the notes you hit, it's about the notes you hit and how much they matter. Right. And he's like, instead of going like and going, Power Rangers, they're in space, Power Rangers, they're in space. It's so important to blend that simplicity of and then the hit. Like I think that's why I love your song so much, because you understand dynamics, and you showed kids like me the importance of dynamics by composing that way.
Yeah.
And it would definitely influence my love of music later on, because I wasn't listening to bands back then. But as soon as Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and all these bands started getting in my life, I'm like, I feel like I've been listening to these. I feel like I've been listening to metal forever.
I know.
Yeah.
There's something about it. I don't know what it is. There's something about the first time I heard somebody just hit a fifth on live.
Yeah.
With a band, I felt that, and I felt it in my stomach, and I went, this is amazing. There's nothing better than this. This offsets all the cheesy crap not all of it, but a majority of it I had to listen to growing up.
Yeah. Well, Rocky's saying something nice about you here.
I agree.
I would, you know what, man? It's not just because you're here. I agree as well. Because in doing research, I'm like, I wonder what a non-Ron song sounds like, and I'm like, nah.
See, because they brought in, and they did a fine job, but they brought in people that didn't have the angst and all the back then the issues, and didn't go through. So they're bringing a team together, going, let's rock it out like Ron. Now I've been listening to this Maiden Iron, and I really, really think we can get some deep stuff in there. So it's nerdy what they did.
And don't forget to throw in some Dark Sabbath. Oh man. So Rocky wrote a whole bunch of stuff here. I like the songs that also had lyrics that matched the theme of each series. Zeo was about growing power. That's true. Turbo had the vehicle theme, and In Space was about the final journey of the Power Rangers back when they thought the show was ending. That's
Yeah.
true. They thought the show was ending back then. And then
Yeah.
it had Lost Galaxy and Found Galaxy and Use Your Illusion Part 6 and and Chinese Democracy and a whole bunch of other shows.
Power Rangers in Philadelphia.
It's Always Sunny in Angel Grove.
Yeah, that was nice. I remember when Disney called and they said, we want to get back to what it was.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll see what I can do.
And that's SPD, right?
SPD, which if you have the full length version,
I know.
and this isn't intentional, but if you listen to the very last or second to the last SPD, stacking vocals made it sound like STD.
Okay.
Okay, play it.
I don't know if it's the full version, but let's check out these STDs. Okay.
It's a lot.
Power Rangers, SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue. Power Rangers, SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue. Heroes on your side, heroes for all time, out to save the universe. No matter where you are, if it's near or far, you can always call out. Space Patrol, Space Patrol, Space Patrol, Space Patrol, Delta. Power Rangers. Power Rangers, SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue. Go, go, SPD.
See, it's the last one I sang. After that long,
Yeah.
whatever. It's the next one that always sounded like STD to me, and I remember like,
Well, that's like what did you mispronounce in Mummy's Alive again?
Scarab.
Yeah,
Scarab.
Yeah.
Scarab. That's what I heard.
ST Scarabs.
Scarab. Tries to get him day and night.
We got more questions. We got more. Legend is an understatement.
Thank you, Romer.
And Rocky Buckland's bringing up a good point. STD. It is catchy, but it's just catchy. I get it. Oh, that's a horrible pun.
Cute.
Yeah, but let's comment a little bit about that. Okay, so you're gone from writing Power Rangers for a little bit of time. You got some time to reflect on it. You come back for this, and now Disney's operating. Did they give you as much leniency as Saban did when it came to the composing of Power Ranger music?
I didn't do the score on SPD. Just the
Okay.
theme. Well,
Sorry.
'cause
I meant the theme.
Oh, the theme. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
they had it was not a cattle call, but there was probably 3 or 4 guys. And this guy, Steve Vincent, who may still be there, he called me back and he said, we love it. I remember exactly where I was. I was visiting my mother-in-law in Pittsburgh when I got that call. And he said, when you get back in town next week, add some sirens. That was the only note. And I went, great. And that was it. And SPD was done.
Wow.
So it was a very fast process on that. Probably spent 1 full day writing it.
Wow. But it's funny though. We're listening to your music, right? And the amazing thing about doing this in order is that is by far the heaviest one.
Yeah,
especially that beginning.
Yeah, it's got the best snare too.
Yeah.
I mean, but by this time I had, back in Power Rangers Day, I literally would have maybe 3 or 4 snares to pick from, samples.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have dynamics. They were just a snare sound. So there was a ton of dance stuff, but there wasn't much for this kind, for rock. But by this time, by 2005, probably had several hundred. Now I have millions of everything. It's just absurd what I have now. So now I can never find it. I have too much now. Everybody does. It's a problem with every composer. It's too much stuff.
You know what? Sometimes too much is too much, and sometimes like
Too
a lot of
much.
composers, they'll use digital stuff as crutch. But that's why I think why we all loved your music is like you can literally hear you fighting for its creation, and
Yeah.
like it's very very punk rock. I really like it.
And almost all those songs are not about the show. The stuff that ended up on the album and in the show, it's the initial ones are, but the rest became about really started to just. I was really talking about what I was doing in life.
I was looking on your Spotify, and it mentions kind of like a theme, like a Power Rangers movie trailer score. Did you work on any newer Power Rangers
There was
iterations?
something 3 or 4 years ago that some cinematographers were trying to launch, and I did some writing for that.
Okay,
Something like 3 years ago,
something like that. Yeah.
the Green Ranger thing, and they shot a trailer for it,
Okay.
and it was going to be a film, and I have no idea whatever happened to it.
Oh, I think you mean Shattered Grid, right?
Shattered Grid was going to Hasbro was looking for that to be a series.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that thing that you can look up on YouTube, and that was a lot of fun. But there was a lot of restrictions on that, so I didn't get to do exactly what I wanted. But I was really happy with it. And it was fun to go down and watch them shoot it.
Okay, so Ron, it is pretty unique that I get to ask you this, but when did you even realize that Power Rangers was a huge thing? Because it seems to me that you write the songs, you get them out, and you move on to the next project. So you're not kind of sitting around like waiting for the success of it. When did it come to your attention that this Power Rangers thing was not just big, but huge?
I think about 2 months after the show got launched, because they kept saying, we've got kind of a bad time slot, 8:30 a.m. or 8 a.m. And then they started to notice that kids were tardy for school because they were staying home to watch the show. So then they gave, it a 7 and 7:30 a.m. slot. And then I remember at Universal Studios, just outside of Hollywood, they were doing a live appearance of the Power Rangers at this, I forgot what it was called. It was the amphitheater that they had back then that's now Harry Potter Land. And I lived across on the other side of the freeway, and I was invited to go. And I remember my wife and I, we couldn't even, the freeway was jammed up.
Wow.
For 4 miles with traffic. So we ended up just walking, and I got in there, and the first time I really realized it, now they put me, it's pretty widely known, and some people consider it awful, but this was Saban politics. They kept me hidden from everybody. My name was out there, but as you know, I'm listed as engineer. They own the rights. When executives came in, they made sure I was gone. I never met anybody. Okay. I was just kept in the room and working, and I was fine doing it because I knew the deal going in. But when I sat in that audience, and I remember I was far off to the side, and we were like 50 rows back of 100 rows, and they played the theme, and the whole place sang it. And I just got a chill, and I went, this is big. This is really, really big. And then that night or the following Monday, went right back to work on whatever I had to do that night.
You've written so many themes for this. First of all, that moment is amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Great moment.
Because I was getting goosebumps because I was picturing it, because I was like, man, one of those little kids would have been me, but I was up in Canada. My family and we would go to Plattsburgh because they would get the toys like 3 months before, back then, before Amazon and all that. There's a much more bigger difference in distribution when it came to things reaching the market. Right. So I used to go, all my friends thought I was so cool because my parents would go to Plattsburgh and buy the toys a few weeks ahead of time. And I would have definitely been one of those kids. We've been getting but you said that they kept you in a room away from anybody, but that doesn't last forever, I'm assuming. Have you met any cast members?
I met the original cast once. Because they were in for a meeting and they wanted to use my no, I'm not in touch with Jason David Frank. Last time I spoke to him was the 3 or 4 years ago when we did that trailer. Okay. Very this guy.
Cool.
I'd never really spoken to him prior to that, never met him. So they came in because they were going to have some sort of meeting, and I was in Studio A, which was a pretty large soundproof room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just chatted with them a few minutes, and I said, I'm going to leave so you guys can talk. And that's the one time. And then once I worked with Amy Jo Johnson, she was going to sing on something. I don't know if it was for the show or her own project. And I worked with her a couple hours, and she sang, and I don't even remember what it was for. And that was it. That was the only time I met him. And I went down to the set once, which was in Valencia, California. But I think it was sheer coincidence that it was empty. The guards were there. I'd been told I could get in. I walked around the sets. That was it. Which was, I think, I'd been on other sets as a kid, but it had been a long time since I'd been on the sets. So it was, your brain can't wrap its head around the juice bar being, lit and no ceiling and all that kind of stuff. So it was fun to see.
What, do you have a favorite Ranger?
Oh, it was always Amy.
Amy? Yeah. Well, Amy's awesome.
Yeah.
She's been to Ottawa Comic-Con, I believe, last year or the year before, and she was absolutely charming, great on stage, all that.
She was charming back then. She's just she's truly nice. You never got the vibe from her that, I'm on this hit show. It was just, I'm glad I'm working.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that comes with a lot of people. I mean, not that you had anything to do with this, of course, but a few of the actors famously fired when the show was on fire. They had to bring in new people.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch. Power Rangers would make the most interesting. Like, how Motley Crue has a book called The Dirt. I want to read a book from all six Power Rangers perspectives of what was happening during the insanity of making the show, including, you writing the music and being like, they kept me away like Smeagol in a cave and made sure.
I'm surprised they haven't. And it would actually be a massive miniseries. If Netflix did even a 6-episode thing on how they came from nothing and the way the machine operated back then, but I don't know why it hasn't been done.
I'm not sure either. So Ron, do you have out of all these songs that you wrote, we talked about a lot of classics of them. We're not covering them all today because frankly, that would take hours. But if you could say, what's some of your favorite songs that you ever wrote television wise?
Oh, well, wow. Well, with my wife, that was a whole different genre. That was more like Sarah McLachlan with a kiss of Radiohead in it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was stuff there that I definitely love. For the TV themes, SPD, every time I hear it, my blood rushes again. So there's something magic about that theme. As far as the songs, there's things like I Will Win and that were written near the end. I think I wrote that one for the movie. That stuff was pretty powerful to me. But the songs go in a whole sequence almost of what was going on in my life. So they were written to some people at the company during those years, and others were written just about other stuff I did. There's a song called I Know a Place. It was literally about a bar around the corner from Saban where all of the post-production people would meet maybe once a week around 11 p.m. I worked from 6 p.m. to like 4 or 5 a.m. And we would all meet there around 11 and just have a beer and then go back to, doing sound effects, music editing, composing, all that kind of stuff. So they're about real life. And that's the sincerity that I think came through on these things.
Yeah. And, considering it was a show about teenagers turning into giant robots, fighting giant rubber pigs, I always felt like it was, I always felt that there was a real level of realism to it. Yeah. Even as surreal as everything was. And I thought, and as a young kid, even though they'd show the same 20 minutes of them changing into their stuff every day, I still was always worried. In fact, just to comment with you right now, just reflecting upon this, I remember there was this one day where there was it was on every day on YTV in Canada, and every day there was this storyline with the Green Ranger called Green with Evil, and it was a 5-parter. And back then, kids, there was no instant gratification binge watching show thing. You had to make sure you were there, and if you weren't there, you would miss it. And I remember every day for a solid week they had this thing called Green with Evil. And my dad is a martial artist, and he set up a kids martial arts class for me to take because I was showing some interest. And I eventually stopped going to it because I would rather watch Power Rangers do martial arts than do martial arts myself. So I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know. You're probably not watching this, but I'm going to tell you about it. And I always thought that was funny. And it all comes from the music.
Bucks.
Yeah. When did you first see an episode, like, and see your music come into it? Because I'm assuming you saw some dailies to kind of like,
Well, they would give me locked picture.
Okay.
Then I would generally go through the episode and score about 9 minutes of it, and then hand the rest up. At first you're building the music library.
Yeah.
So initially I'm scoring the whole thing wall to wall, and then maybe the next one I'm only having to score 17 minutes of it, and then 15 minutes and 12, but it was never less than 9 minutes.
Okay.
So I had the final cut, but honestly, other than working on it and watching it, I've never seen one full completed episode.
Get out.
I know I'll go back and go, I could have done better. I've never watched anything I've ever scored.
That's
And I
hilarious.
sit in a room maybe when they're playing it, and I just kind of tune out.
Okay. So
themes are fine.
okay. All right. I was about to say, I'm like, are all these clips I'm playing giving you horrible feelings?
But I mean, sitting down and actually watching a whole episode. I remember once I scored this indie film and I had to go and sit in the audience, and I was cringing inside, thinking, I could have done this, I could have done that, I should have done this. Why am I mixed so low here? You should hear more of what I did. This was good.
Okay.
So that's the problem. And it also would cause me to pigeonhole, because I've written in almost every style there is. So I never wanted to get stuck and go, oh, I like that, I should do that again. So I never really listened to myself.
Okay. We got some questions from the audience, and I want to definitely play some. What made you want to write the background music for Dragon Ball Z? Well,
initially they said, do you want to score this? And I said, yes, because as we were discussing prior to the show, you don't turn down work because you never know. And this is a perfect case. So I got to do what I want. That's a clear example of me with no restrictions at all, no rules, do that score. And it must have literally been 15 years later when someone wrote and said, Dragon Ball Z is like a cult classic. And I went, oh, I think I worked on that. And I checked back in the files. I go, oh, I scored that for the first couple years. But I love the show. I loved watching it and scoring. It was so fun.
Here's another one. What's your thoughts on both demo tracks you did for Mystic Force?
The Rock one has been great, and Disney wanted The Rock. When I got the call from the same guy, Steve Vincent, he said, we love it. We may have some notes, get back to you in a few days. And then he called back and he goes, so the producers were listening to rap in their car this morning coming in, and they want a rap version. And I just went, well, I'll try something, but I don't do that. So I think the rap one is hysterical. I almost did it as just to prove that I couldn't. And I love the Rock one. The Rock one's really good.
Awesome.
I thought that was a pretty strong one. They should have gone with it. And I got to sit at Morphicon with all the creators of Mystic Force. And I said, what's it somewhere in it, because that tension was there.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody heard me, but I said, what's it like to have produced the one season that had the worst theme ever? And after the panel quit, they all went to one side. They wouldn't look at me. They were mad. And it really was half a joke. And everybody knows it's the worst Power Ranger theme ever. I know some people like it, but it's the worst.
That's hilarious. Okay.
Moment.
Oh, Shamar is saying loved your work on X-Men and Mighty Morphin Power
Shamar.
Rangers. You know what? We were talking about before. It's just like with X-Men. What can you tell us about X-Men there, Ron?
I can tell you it was a very difficult theme to work on. A lot of people were involved. As some of you may know, a lawsuit came up last year, and I've been dismissed from the case.
Cool.
It's going to continue.
Yeah.
And I will still have to do depositions and stuff, but I'm out of it.
Cool. Well,
that's unfortunately all I can say about it for now.
Perfect.
Thank God.
What I will say about it, though, is your execution of your playing on it is fantastic.
Thank you.
And your ability to make a keyboard sound like a guitar is insane.
And all those damn hi-hats on that X-Men theme. That's the one thing I remember. Notes. More hi-hats. More hi-hats.
Really?
There's so many tracks on that theme. It was just a cluster mess.
Cluster.
Yeah.
All right. Here's Bernadette's got a great question. What's your favorite season of Power Rangers?
Original. It's always going to be the original. And my favorite episode will be the one with it was Pudgy Pig, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't get any funnier than that. Oh. It was hard to believe that parents were concerned about the violence when you're bouncing off a latex pig. That was the 90s.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ron. On YTV, I believe we had the first about the first year and a half, 2 years of Power Rangers. And then because of people complaining about violence, they eventually took it off YTV and they put it on Fox Kids. But Montreal did not have Fox Kids yet, or certain parts of it did. Like, let's say this geography means nothing to anybody but me and a few Montrealers. But let's say if Lachine had it, I didn't. And I remember going and watching it on the Scrambly station, trying to see what would happen. And there was the episode where the White Ranger would appear. But to me, he could have been a brown and blue and yellow Ranger because it's a Scrambly station and there was no discernible color to reference. So they're like, "Ooh," and I'm like, okay. There's a new Ranger. If you say so.
Rainbow Ranger.
Yeah. But when we got Fox Kids, that was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shamar's saying, well, thanks for creating the Go Green Ranger theme. Such a badass song.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Green Ranger. Oh.
I don't want to keep you all day, Ron, but I definitely want to say thank you very much for coming by, answering everybody's questions. Everyone, if you have questions, write them quickly because I can't take up this man's time. He's got more legendary tracks to write.
Very busy. You have to watch a meteor shower tonight.
But I will say,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What was the first song that you ever? Because you mentioned like, I worked on this and I didn't even know. When's the first time you ever heard your music in a television show on TV where you can't touch it anymore? It is what it is, and you just have to sit there and watch it.
I think it was 1987. I was in a band and we got called in because they needed the sound of a band for the background on some show with a guy named Jack Klugman. And we just came in and recorded on the floor of the set. So it's a sitcom, so they have the living room, the bedroom, whatever, how every sitcom. And they just recorded us for a minute. And I remember watching that episode, waiting to see, and you could just barely hear us in the background, but we got paid like $50 each and we were thrilled. So that's the first time I heard myself on TV. And then the first time on radio was the band with my wife, Fisher, driving to San Diego. We were number one at the station in 99 or 2000, 99. And we're driving down to San Diego with all the people from Interscope Records, and the song comes on the radio, and the ocean was to our right, and the water was calm. And that was another great moment.
Oh, my goodness. This is the best thing I've ever heard. Did you compose the Bulk and Skull theme?
Yeah, and I got to talk to those guys at Morphicon. I said, "You understand what your theme is, right?" They said, "No." I go, "Well, the tube is down there. Boom, 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 boom." I go, "That's you. fat, fat, and then obnoxious. So it's separating the sounds and the pitches as
Okay.
possible. So you have big guy, little guy.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like Laurel and Hardy in my head when I originally saw them. They were going to have their own series. They had already been working on it. It was somewhat written. It was in the planning stages and fell through. And I remember Paul, they were so excited about it.
Oh,
Our own show. And I said, I think you guys could do great.
I think they should still do their own show and call themselves Hulk and Bull and just change it up a little bit, you know.
I'm surprised they haven't. It's another thing that should have happened.
Skulk and Bull. There you go.
Exactly. Very good.
Yeah.
Pull it off. And they're wonderful guys. I didn't hang out with them when they did it, but through the Morphicon out here in LA, there were I met them every time they were there and we would hang out. They were genuinely nice people.
Amazing. What about this? Do you have any more rock stuff in your future?
Yeah, it could happen. It depends. Oddly enough, ever since Power Rangers, every show that I was handed where I thought it would work or commercials, and I said, let me do this, they've said rock never works. And I would, really nicely say, have you ever heard of Power Rangers? It was kind of big. And they would say, yeah, well, maybe it worked for that, but it won't work for our show. I'm like, you're doing action animation. It'll work. So I've never been allowed to do rock again. They just flat out won't allow it. They're scared of it. Yeah, I know. There's no logic to it.
I don't know if you have an answer for this one, but what was your inspiration for White Ranger, Tiger Power, and Gold Ranger?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, when I recut the songs in 2012, that's the only, I could only recut, even though I wrote it, I could only recut stuff that had been released on audio only products.
Okay.
The laws governing music are absurd. And that was the one song I could have done. And I never liked it when I wrote it. And I didn't, it had to be written, but to be honest with you, having white and power in the same phrase, just cringe. It just killed me. It killed me to sing it. And when people go, why didn't you recut it? I loved it. I just went, I know it doesn't even mean anything like that, but those two words are in there and it kills me. I hate it. I hate it. I hate how there's anything even race related or insinuated in the slightest way. It really turned my stomach even when I had to do it.
Yeah, I'm kind of cringing in my seat right here too. I'm just kind of like, did no one think that this would eventually be a problem? But
I don't know, because I'll tell you, things to me, I'm 58. Things to me seemed a bit definitely on the right path and going smoother back then. Apparently, I didn't see what was really going on.
Okay.
But it felt like they were heading in the right direction. So that stuff wasn't so much to be worried about. But by 2012, when people asked why didn't I recut it for that redo album, I just said, what are you, nuts? White Ranger, Tiger Power. I mean, ugh.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Nah.
My inspiration was that was the phrase they had. I had to write a song, and I hated it the whole time. Gold Ranger, fine.
Yeah. Let's see if we got any more, everybody. Okay, well, everybody is always just saying best wishes and stay awesome.
Thank you.
Lovely. That's lovely. And Bernadette, thank you once again for watching and sharing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I hope you guys are doing okay through this very strange time. So,
yeah,
however you feel about masks or social distancing or all that, just do try and be careful, because it's like having a silent assassin out there.
Yeah.
Regardless, we don't really know. No one seems to really know what's going on, but just be safe. I know it's hard. It's very boring. Actually, terribly boring, but yeah.
Everybody treat yourself like a composer to Power Ranger and stay in a room and just write tunes and let everybody else take care of it.
Stay home. No, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope nobody's gotten sick from it that's out there.
Yeah, for sure. Ron, before we go, I have a question that I've been dying to ask you, because your music, when I play it, whether if it's X-Men, Power Rangers, now Mummy's Alive, holy crap. Um, I gotta say, what's a theme song that you heard when you were younger that made you feel as good as I do when I hear your music?
Oh man, that nobody has ever asked me that. It's like what I listen to. It's so incredibly diverse.
Mm.
So what would have hit me like that? A show, and I never watched a show, but I remember the theme. There was a thing called the Rockford Files that had this kind of cool keyboard lead. And then there was Quincy Jones wrote the theme for a show called Sanford and Sons. So those were the ones. They didn't give you this big energy thing, but they were so clever and kind of cutting edge for the time. So I really like those.
Nice. All
Those
right.
are I can think.
Oh, sorry. You were saying?
Oh, those are the only two I can think of.
Amazing.
When I was a little kid, the themes all sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were little kid themes. No matter
They're all Mystic Force, man. Come on.
a giant smile.
Yeah, we need more Power Ranger STD in here. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, thanks very much for watching today. This has been amazing. Meeting Ron, this is lovely, and I hope to say goodbye to you right before we wrap up here. But everybody else, thank you very much for watching this. Ron, where can people find you on the internet machine?
Just go ronw.com or go to Facebook. It's easy to find me. There'll be a little blue check. They gave me a blue check a couple years back, so you'll know it's me.
Okay.
Ron Wasserman.
All right. We're going to play our outro, and then we will see you guys next time, everybody. And yeah. All right. Where is my outro? I got to find this. I'm all excited now. All right. Here we go. Bye, everyone.
Check out more episodes of You, Me, and YTV on Facebook and YouTube. Sweet one-of-a-kind interviews with PJ Fresh Bill, PJ Paul, Tarzan Dan, the cast of Student Bodies, the voice acting cast of Sailor Moon, and much, much more. Exclusively on You, Me, and YTV.